Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Cassandra. Today I'm going to be talking about the new CDC guidelines that were released May 2020 and also what you could be doing right now as a parent with school-aged children. If you are on social media at all, you probably saw a post that was passed around. This post had a picture with some bullet points regarding CDC guidelines. Now, if you take some time and trace the actual document of the CDC guidelines, you will see that the details included in the document from the CDC does have the information that was in the post, except a lot of things were taken out of context. So just to start, the first bullet, it said that children over the age of 2 are to wear masks. That's what the post had. It was a bullet point. Now, if you go back to the actual document from the CDC, you'll see that it does say that children over the age of 2, if possible, that's the word that they cut out, if possible, should wear masks when social distancing isn't possible. So right there you can see that it is misleading. It's making it seem as if a law or regulations have been passed through the whole entire United States for every single school, public and private and charter schools, that every single kid nationwide has to wear masks if you're over the age of 2. But to remember that the document is coming from the CDC as simply suggestions and recommendations on what you should do for opening up schools. And it's just saying that if a kid could wear a mask, if they're all tight together in a line, maybe a mask would be something that they might wear. But if they're spread out over 6 feet, maybe a mask isn't needed. So other things that were included in that post were things like all desks must face the same way, must be 6 feet apart, taped areas, no switching classrooms, not going into cafeterias or having field trips. All those things are included in the document, and if you haven't had a chance to read that document, I do have the link below, and I would suggest starting on page 45. That's where the section is for schools reopening is, and you'll see that information is in that document. But again, it's just misleading because it's not saying things like if possible, when possible, if social distancing isn't possible. And I think that the post that was sent out in social media really almost was designed to strike some fear and worry for parents and say, well, I don't want my kid to have to go into their public school and have to experience this, and this is some law that they've already passed. Well, then what is true and what's not? So I think first step is to make sure we're not getting our information just from social media and that you're taking that time to read the documentation that is actually being released from the CDC and going to government websites, as well as getting involved in your kid's school. If you are in a private or charter or your public school, call up your school, send them an email, find out when is the next teacher meeting and parent meeting, when are they having a school district, maybe it's an online meeting that you can just jump on and hear what they're planning for the fall. Those are things that you want to get your voice out there. You can also talk to your local or your state representatives and find out what are they planning for the fall before you sort of like jump off the deep end and say, well, I don't want my kid to go to school at all. So now I think that's the other thing too that's hard for parents is when you see these types of things and you feel fearful, you look at it and you say, well, okay, well, is my option public school and doing these things the CDC says, even if it's not all of them, it may be some of them. If I don't want that, then my next option is just to homeschool my child and I'm going to have to teach all day and come up with my own curriculum. I think the thing to realize that there is a lot of different schooling options between homeschooling and public schooling, from charter schools to private schools to online charter schools to cyber schools to homeschool online academies. There's so many different options parents have, and it's not just one option or the other. Now, I think all of us as parents, even as a homeschool mom, I have to say, I don't think anybody likes the hand we've been dealt. And you look at these options and you're like, well, I don't like option A. well, what do I do? So right now, during this time, before you just make the final decision to say, well, I don't want my kid to have to do any of these CDC guidelines, I think it's good to weigh your options and also figure out, well, if option A I don't like and I don't want to do, is there an option B or an option C? And taking that time to sort of explore those options. So I'm going to be doing another video that's going to walk you through the different options there are for schooling and the terminology with them, and even with homeschooling, how I don't have to just teach my kid and be standing there teaching all day, how there's even other options and some hybrid options that you can pick as a homeschooler as well. So watch for that video. But in the meantime, take the time to find out what your local community is doing, talk to your public school or your private school, and get connected to the right people. Now, during this time for the last few months, I know that there's been a lot of parents who've had their kids at home, and we've had sort of this hodgepodge of Zoom and online schooling from a lot of the public and private schools, and it's not a traditional homeschool. It's definitely not what you would expect for cyber schooling as well, because a lot of school districts didn't have the infrastructure set up to be able to support online schooling during the last few months. So you might have had your kids home and say, well, I don't want to do this online schooling, or I can't have my kids at home. This is too hard for me. I think before making those decisions, to realize that the season that we've been in has been hard for everyone, and it's not what schooling really is about, and there are many options. And if you've gone through the last few months and you can also say, this school and homeschooling is not for me. It is not my calling. It's something I've never signed up to do, and I don't want to do it. And then all of a sudden you feel like mom guilt or mom shame, that there's something wrong with me, that I don't want my kids home all the time. If you feel that way, it is okay. Like, it is okay if you realize that homeschooling is not your calling, because even though I'm a homeschool mom and I support homeschooling, I know that it is not a calling for everyone. It could be your work situation, maybe it's two parents working, or it could just be that you're like, this is just not a skill that I have, and it's okay to admit that. So at the time that you realize that, you don't like maybe what's going to happen for the fall, you will need to hit a point that you obviously weighing those options and saying, well, maybe I don't feel called to homeschool. But to remember that if you make a decision to keep your kid at home next year, whether it's a cyber school or a traditional homeschooling, you're not making the decision for their whole entire schooling career up until 12th grade. You can make a decision and just say, for 2020-21, this is what we're going to do right now. And then after that, we're going to reevaluate and decide where to go from there. And that is okay. And it's okay to feel that this wasn't your calling and just trying to work through it. The last thing is really just connecting arms with people. Now, if you do not know any homeschool friends, or if you don't know anybody that does cyber schooling, to really take the time to do some research. You can also contact your local libraries once they do reopen, and just get connected with different groups that do things like cyber school or different charter schools, and do those researches and find out what options do you have in your community, and then link arms with people that are in the trenches doing the same thing that you're looking into doing, and seeing how is their life, and is that something that I could do for next year. So now if you like this video and you want to hear some more, I just ask you to go ahead and click that like button, click subscribe, and just watch for my next video where I'm going to dig down deeper into the different type of schooling options that you have as a parent. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.